Welcome back, Guardians. And today we talk about Destiny lore. What kind of lore? We're talking about the frames of the Destiny. As you saw with that little intro, you may have been thinking the same way I have. You may wander around the tower, look at these frames and say, I wonder what their story is. Well, some of them have stories, not all of them. Some of them are more important, some of them have been around longer, some of them have been out doing more stuff than others. Some may have been standing behind the desk of the postmaster, while others may be out in the Battle of the Twilight Gap. And that's what I'm going to tell you. But first, big question, what are frames? In one sentence definition, what are frames? In the shortest way I could say it, multi-purpose, non-sentient robots that serve the city. Now, one of the things about frames is that they're robots, and they're human-like. So that can raise the question as to what is the difference between frames and exos, if there even is a difference. There's a big difference. You see, exos can be you. A frame would not be watching this video. Just wouldn't. It does not have the mental capacity, nor is it even conscious of itself. That's what makes it non-sentient. It only has so much things going on in its head. Whereas an exo is like almost one-to-one of a human. Some say it's even better, but you can argue that on your own time. Frames can be given protocols. They do not just have to do one thing, they can be switched out, and they can do many things, but not as many things as exos, which is not as many things as humans, so it's a completely different level. Frames can be used for both civil and military applications, and you mostly see civil. You're never really gonna see military applications, because civil, you're just gonna see them walking around the tower, sweeping, postmaster, vanguard quartermaster, crucible quartermaster, bounties. That's all you're gonna see them, standing around, handing out bounties, weapons, armor. So that seems pretty boring lore, but that's not it. You see, before our time, us Guardians, during Lord of Shaxx, their time, frames were more often seen. In fact, we really haven't seen a battle like the Battle of Twilight Gap, so I really can't say we haven't seen anything like it yet. But frames were more common on the battlefield. There are a lot more Guardians now than there were ever. So back then, Lord Shaxx had a good amount of frames on his back. In fact, you might actually know one of them. That's Arcite 9940. But you're not going to know him by that name. Unless you're a lore freak. Then you might know his name. But that's the Crucible Quartermaster. In fact, you could have put the pieces together because he looks a lot like Lord Shaxx. In fact, you can argue that he has the most history out of any of the frames. He's the most interesting in my opinion too, which is a shame because I'm putting him in the first one, which will make the other ones sound really boring. You see, Arcite 9940 was not always a quartermaster, like Lord Shaxx. Lord Shaxx wasn't always the master of the Crucible. Arcite served underneath Lord Shaxx, so when Lord Shaxx was out and about, Arcite was at his side. This is when he had the combat systems in his head. Now, those were taken out and replaced with the Tower Vendor protocols, which I guess is just like a hard drive with a bunch of protocols on it that you kind of just like put in like a memory stick to the back of their head. I guess that's how it goes. And then boom, he's now a Tower Vendor. The way I picture it is if you've seen Big Hero 6, and Baymax has his own protocols, that little USB stick in his chest, that's it. You take it out, you put one in, next thing you know, you got a frame that's firing guns everywhere. You don't want that in a tower, so you have it with protocols that allow it to not do that, unless it has a defense system. But you may be wondering, does Arcite remember any of this? Well, yes. His memory banks are still intact, and all the battles he has fought alongside Lord Shaxx, maybe even previous to Lord Shaxx, are still there. Also, a cool thing about frames is that they may be non-sentient, not as complex as exos, but they do adopt their master's manners, personalities. That can happen. I mean, just look at Arcite. You've gone over to him, you see him, and you say, that looks a lot like Lord Shaxx. Not a coincidence. It's not because they're both a part of the Crucible and they have to look like that. It's just that Arcite really looked up to Lord Shaxx, adopted his personality, adopted his clothing, clearly, and also, he does say things that sound a lot like Lord Shaxx. He has been quoted of saying, you want the Crucible, Shaxx is the Crucible. He may be showing a little bit of favoritism to the Guardians, but that's expected. You can't really expect a lot out of a frame, but they are interesting. Because I'm talking about one of the frames, I might as well talk about all the other ones that are named. Unfortunately, not all of them are named. So the ones that you see kind of walking around or just going through files, staring out a window, they have names, but they're unknown to me. Maybe you can give them your own names. Maybe you already have given their own names. So go ahead and share that. Go in alphabetical order. Berg9940. He is the bounty tracker for the Vestian outpost. First off, I'm going to stop right there. Please comment down below and tell me that, do you really call it the Vestian outpost? I mean, really? Looking up lore, you see the actual names of things, so it's kind of like, hold on, wait a minute. Isn't that the Reef? Yeah, it's the Reef. So if you call it the Vestian outpost, that's just weird. And I'm wondering if you know anyone that does say the Vestian outpost, because if you do, just kind of smack them. It's the Reef. But as I was saying, Berg9940, bounty tracker for the Reef. That also makes you wonder who's the bounty tracker for the city, and that is Xander9940. The postmaster for the tower is Katie5530. The postmaster for the Reef is Senta5530. And the last one that is named is Ronnie5530, and he's the Vanguard quartermaster. Now, unfortunately, these last 5 are not nearly as interesting as Arcite, but it doesn't mean to say that they aren't. And that may be contradicting myself, but it's when you don't know about them, you can't really say anything about them. So actually, you know what? That last 30 seconds of me talking, just kind of cut that out. These last 5 known frames, their history is unknown to us. Maybe Berg has been out on the battlefield for many years. Maybe he was a lot more active than Arcite, which is a shame in Destiny, because don't you just wish there was that extra layer of lore in Destiny? The game. We know there's lore, but there has to be in the game. We should be able to access these memories. Maybe you can go inside Arcite. He is a robot. He definitely has recorded some of these things, so in his head, in his memory banks, there must be recordings of these battles, which would be very handy and may be incorporated later in Destiny, but that's a big stretch, so I'm not going to say that. Technically just did. If I guessed it and it's right, you heard it here first. If it's not, just forget it. I'm sorry. Although I went through a couple of frames, there is a difference between Reef frames and city frames. One of them is better than the other. Let's face it. You may have noticed it, maybe not. The Reef are auxiliary guards. That's what their frames are. They're not really doing anything. They're not really important. They're not really capable as much as the city. They're just really found wandering the Vestian outpost, serving similar posts to the tower, and that's pretty much it though. However, these frames are more retro, primitive. They lack learning capabilities or personalities. In fact, looking at it, Arcite is the most human-like frame that we know about. Takes on almost the complete personality of Lord Shaxx. In the Reef, you're not going to find that. You're wondering why? Some of these are actually wiped from time to time, which is a shame because some of these might actually have memories. Although they're not as capable as the city, it's possible. So the Reef frames are wiped, memories, personalities, and just replaced. Like I said, major shame. Definitely should protest. Tell the queen, even though she's not there, when she comes back, tell her to stop doing this. This is unacceptable. You gotta treat frames right, because frames are like the pets of Destiny. We don't have pets, but we technically do. I talk about how there's pretty much no animals in Destiny. While it is true, it's almost like they did put in pets, in a way. Except if your dog had a little chip in the back of its head that you could take out and replace for how you want it to act. Like, for example, maybe when you go to bed, you turn on to defensive mode, any intruders get attacked, you wake up, friendly mode, don't piss in the house mode, which would be fantastic. All you guys must be agreeing, heads shaking yes, we need this. But that's what frames are. They are the unintentional pets of Destiny, and some of them, just like dogs, are better than others. Let's face it, not all dogs are the same. You have the Reef, where they're stupid, unable to learn, but loyal. And then you have the city, which are much more playful, able to learn, they can sit down when they tell you to. There's also, they take the personality of you, which is always nice. So when you walk around the tower, you can look around and say, these frames have memories of battles that have been fought. Maybe that frame has been going through a lot. He may just be sweeping, but he may have gone through pretty tough times. But now his protocol for combat was taken out, and then replaced watching birds, sweeping, or doing this. But anyway, Guardians, that's been for me. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Later, Guardians.